Sports Professor Rick Horrow. Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, the serious show that doesn't take itself too seriously, but it gives you an insight into the trillion-dollar business, marketing, endorsement, legal, deal-making, news aspects of sports. All really big this week. As normal, NFL season kicking off everybody everywhere, but apparently probably South Florida. College football week 2, NFL clearly dominating the headlines. We'll see that as we get into the entire substance of the show. But if you want our 15 items plus our 5 tech, go into CSN Mid-Atlantic and you'll see our entire list. We'll cover a lot of that today. You want to also subscribe to us on the Apple Podcast, Stitcher Play, Audio Boom, iTunes. There's a whole bunch of places you can get us, and we'll be consistent with showing you all of these issues throughout the entire show. Obviously, NFL dominates, but there are other issues. For example, look what happened Labor Day weekend. Anyone out there still doesn't think sports is all about passion and joy, you weren't really paying attention this last weekend. Argentina's ailing Martin Del Potro down 2 sets and 2 match points to Austrian Dominic Thiem, rallying to win in 5 sets, booing a national and international audience of singing fans. Madison Keys digging deep in his 3rd set to put 4 American women in the U.S. Open quarterfinals for the first time since 2002. By the way, Chris Widmeyer, one of the managing directors of the U.S. Open, will be on with us later on to talk about what the secret will be for men's and women's tennis down the road. He's one of the key managers of the U.S. Open, so he'll have something to say about this. How about golf? The LPGA makes a return to the Hoosier State. They traveled from Portland, Oregon to the capital city of Indiana this week. World-class field of 144 professionals, 26 different countries, descending on the Brickyard Crossing Golf Club for the inaugural Indy Women in Tech Championship presented by Guggenheim. Tour's first stop in Indiana since the Solheim Cup in 2005. The U.S. captured the victory, but it's been a while. It's the second-to-last event domestically until the season-ending CME Group Tour Championship in Naples. They travel to France now after this event for the 5th and final major, the Avion. The 2017 LPGA schedule includes the addition of 4 new tournaments and an increase of $4.35 million in official total prize money. More to the point, in Indy, the IWIT Championship, as it's known, offers opportunity in the form of a week's worth of educational events, thousands of women attending, looking for new or expanded careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. So golf is good in the Midwest. Golf may not be good in the South. Hurricane Harvey devastated South Texas, causing a humanitarian disaster, along with the storm surge and causing businesses to shut down due to flooding. Since golf courses are all outdoors and can't really be protected from the environment, they can't even start imagining how much damage there would be, according to Steve Timms, president and CEO of the Houston Golf Association. Obviously, it'll be significant, but it's not a 100-year event where they build the greens and the tees on floodplains, 100-year floodplains. This was a 500-year event. The flooding is so bad in some areas, tall trees look more like bushes, since only their top leaves stick out above the water. And at the Golf Club of Houston, home to the Shell Houston Open, the University of Houston golf teams, collegiate coaches, and others used kayaks to rescue their team's expensive electronic training equipment from the course, which was under close to 9 feet of water. Got a feel for these folks. How about the NBA? Well, we're almost ready for the beginning of the season in the next couple months, and Kevin Durant dipping his foot into the technology world with his recent investment in startup Rubrik. The reigning NBA Finals MVP invested an undisclosed amount, becoming the most recent NBA superstar to make a fast break for tech investment, partnerships, and startup equity. Durant represented the cloud data management startup at the VM World Technology Conference in Vegas recently. With his investment, he was also named a board advisor for advice on strategic marketing initiatives. Fellow Golden State Warriors stars Stephen Curry and Andre Iguodala have also made tech investments in this past year. The two teammates recently held the Players Technology Summit for NBA players, which was meant to bring together top leaders in the technology, venture capital, and sports communities to exchange ideas and share expertise. And by the way, The other thing that's interesting is Curry is the co-founder of the marketing startup Slice, while Iguodala has invested in Thrive Global and the Players Tribune. Obviously very socially responsible, investment savvy, and having really significant opportunities to generate some real big-time dollars as they move forward. Stay with the NBA. Cleveland Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert pulled the plug on his planned $140 million renovation project for Quicken Loans Arena. Gilbert made the decision following months of battling over financing. The renovation is designed to keep the 22-year-old arena competitive with other modern facilities around the NBA, as opposed to building a new one from scratch, as other franchises have elected to do. The plan would have created more bars, more restaurants, and public gathering spaces. But community groups opposed to spending tax money on the upgrades, with rising construction costs being one of the many reasons cited by Cleveland City Council Clerk Pat Britt. The council accepted referendum petitions submitted by a coalition that opposes Cleveland's use of tax dollars for the upgrade. My take is this. Gilbert had hoped these renovations would ultimately help the Cavs land the 2020 or 2021 All-Star game, but for now, that goal seems about as promising as a half-court shot at the buzzer. We got other issues in football. We'll talk about them in a minute. But there's one international baseball story that is probably worth covering and talking about. The MLB and the China Baseball Association formally extended their partnership with the intent to spread baseball across the world's most populous country. And the two sides first agreed to a partnership back in 2001, calling it a partnership benefiting Major League Baseball and sports in China as well. MLB trying to win over just a small fraction of the 1.3 billion Chinese citizens, which could equate to tens of millions of new fans. To put that number in perspective, by the way, and my take is this: the population of the U.S., a mere 323 million, and James Small, the MVP Vice President of Asia Pacific, has said, as I said many times, baseball perfectly suited for China. And what he really means is there are 1.3 billion people who are baseball fans. They just don't know it yet. A key part of the new partnership is utilizing MLB's training expertise to grow and build a strong Chinese national team, which could compete internationally. Of course, very, very, very important to the Chinese government and everybody in China. But let's talk about the NFL, because that is dominating the headlines. Hurricane, and more hurricane. As we speak, Hurricane Irma is wreaking havoc on Florida and the Miami Dolphins plan for their season opener. But despite Hurricane Harvey not reaching Dallas, the Cowboys and Texans games was postponed and canceled, by the way, the fourth preseason game, to allow family of the Texans to return. They made it clear they don't want to play the game at RNG Stadium, and they believe it's important for the city to play the opening game there. At present, it's looking good for the Texans and their fans to start the season at home. A lot of issues need to be resolved, but we all understand how important the NFL is as a social consensus builder. You just got to stay safe. And that's the issue that South Florida is facing right now. Turn to L.A. Just over a year ago, the L.A. Council and politicians pulled out all the stops to lure an NFL team back to SoCal. Flash forward to today, though, and America's second biggest city has two teams. But the San Diego Union Tribune, the fight for L.A. between the Rams and the Chargers is not what many expected it to be. The Chargers couldn't even attract enough fans to fill the 27,000-seat StubHub Center for preseason games. The Chargers suited up for a preseason game against their crosstown foes at the Coliseum. They ran into mostly boos in a mostly empty stadium. Both teams have low expectations for the coming season, though, which means attendance across the board might be poor. But it's fairly clear the Rams' honeymoon is over and the Chargers might never get one. And the take is that while wins certainly add fans, and a huge subset of Los Angeles NFL fans have hearts that belong to the Raiders, soon to relocate to a Vegas playground, a mere 4-hour drive from L.A. Interestingly, other NFL issues dominate. BBC, let's go across the pond. They have a new deal with the NFL. The NFL show, the Saints and Dolphins at Wembley, the Dolphins and Browns at Twickenham, Super Bowl 52 on February 4. The NFL show airs on either Friday or Saturday nights on BBC One, complemented by the NFL This Week, and rounding up all the action on BBC Two. The expansion of BBC's shoulder programming only continues to confirm one fact. The NFL is no longer just a novelty in the UK. It is a very significant growing force. Let's go back to the West Coast. We already did enough with the Raiders, but there's more. They're still years away from their permanent home in Vegas, though, but their presence starting to spread east into Nevada. The Legends Hospitality Group helping to pave the way for a successful transition into southern Nevada for the franchise. They recently posted an ad for a suite sales manager for the Vegas Raiders via the company's website. The involvement of Legends in the universe of the Raiders became known officially in a July 13 presentation to the Vegas Stadium Authority, board by Icon Venue Group. In that presentation, Legends was listed solely as a sales and marketing partner without any other details given at the time. But as we know, Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones owns a large stake in Legends, also a big supporter of the Raiders owner Mark Davis in his push to move the team to Vegas. Obviously, more will be there as support grows for the Raiders. Let's go down to Jacksonville. Playing in Jacksonville presents a unique twist for NFLers deciding whether or not to protest the national anthem. Jaguars players, by the way, reluctant to stage a protest by sitting or raising a fist during the anthem because of the fan base and heavy military presence. In military towns, you got to find a way to take a stance in your own way. Speak for what you believe in, Jaguars safety Peyton Thompson said, but you definitely don't want to offend anybody on either side. In this situation, either side refers to those speaking out against social injustice on one end, while the other comprises military supporters. And Jags players have largely remained out of the headlines for any defiant actions during the national anthem as a direct result of this situation, while other players around the league seem to be focusing the opposite trend when it comes to protesting. Obviously, the NFL big this week and is only getting bigger. Look at what they're doing in social media quite clearly. First of all, Thursday Night Football game streaming moving from Twitter to Amazon, as we know. The move signifies the changing landscape as growth of online properties such as Amazon become a more well-rounded entity. Though an Amazon Prime membership is involved, customers now enjoy even more benefits and features that go much further than just free two-day shopping. Amazon Prime perks include Amazon Video, used as the main platform to stream games every Thursday night during the NFL season. Their streaming rights acquisition shows Amazon continues to make strides toward becoming a bona fide media powerhouse. And finally, look at another social media option for the NFL, Snapchat. For NFL teams around the country, new social media specialists are bringing fans a new experience that previously has not been seen on the football field. Snapchat being used before games to allow fans to see exactly what's happening with their favorite players at all moments before kickoff. Fans can see them warming up on the field, putting on their equipment, and mentally preparing for the contest at hand. Over the course of the season, thousands of hours of content loaded into Snapchat by social media specialists for all 32 teams. Additionally, Snapchat Live Stories will be produced for every NFL game during the season, including the Super Bowl, enabling millions of fans to engage with uniquely packaged NFL-centric video and photo content through Snapchat. Additionally, live stories produced for NFL events such as the Scouting Combine and the Draft. And by telling the story of the event from the many perspectives of fans, the league, and its teams, these live stories take viewers into the experience. And most importantly, setting up Snapchat for maybe the next round of bidding for the NFL and its media partners. So a lot of issues today with the NFL, a lot with the mega events. But returning to tennis, the U.S. Open grinds to its semis and finals during the weekend. more American women in the elimination rounds than before, a significant time before. American men still have some issues. We understand that the significance of the U.S. Open, with its $50 million prize purse, the largest of any major, $3.7 million for the men, $3.7 million for the woman champion, equal prize money for a long time, $600 million of renovations with a $150 million roof that's been involved for the last year. Louis Armstrong Stadium, 14,000 people renovated and new for next year. What happens this year? Substantial revenues, substantial stability, and a growing business. The person on top of that business is Chris Widmeyer, one of the managing partners of the U.S. Open and the U.S. Tennis Association. He'll talk about how the tennis industry is benefited from the revenues of the U.S. Open and how they keep it continuing. Chris Widmeyer. Sports professor Rick Horrow at the U.S. Open, the venerable U.S. Open. Before we start with the economics, let me just give you a couple of numbers. $150 million, the cost of the published cost of the new roof on Arthur Ashe. By the way, a rain delay today, canceling the afternoon matches, but they're still playing and will continue to play the day and night. We'll talk about that. $600 million is the number that we've seen about renovating the entire complex in the last 5 years. 700,000, the spectators who are here over a 2-week event, the largest event of its kind in the world. There ain't anything bigger. $800 million, the economic impact of this event in New York and the region, probably more. Then we'll get to it, 98,000, which is the number of tennis balls, apparently, that are used in these 2 weeks. And if they're stacked end to end, apparently it'll be 12 times the size of One World Trade Center. You got to stack them up without the wind. Did you come up with that number? Chris Widmeyer, by the way, one of the managing directors of the USTA. Was that your number? That has you written all over it.
Well, you know, Rick, we try. You got to capture people's imagination and get them into the sport.
Well, and clearly that's the whole name of this game. First, let's talk about economics as well. $50 million purse, bigger than ever. 3.7 for the men's and women's champion, equal. You set a lot of standards here, and it keeps getting bigger.
I mean, like the players are the biggest part of the game, right? So you have to pay them what you feel is fair. And certainly the U.S. Open has stepped up in that area, and we now are providing the largest purse in tennis history and probably one of the largest paydays in all of sports.
And you started making that commitment in 1973 of equal prize money, and all the majors at varying degrees of intensity are following suit. Obviously, good trend and something that other sports can learn from.
I would agree with that. I mean, like, we do have a unique benefit in tennis. 51% of our fan base is female. 51% of folks that come on the grounds are female. So you don't see that type of balance in other sports. I mean, some are getting closer to that, but you know, we still are the most gender-friendly, if that's the proper term. So you harken back to 1973, as you just did. I think the USTA has been ahead of the curve on this issue. You know, we are putting women's share ups into the men's final match, and you know, we try to have a gender-neutral lenses. We're not looking at things from a gender base. We just want the best of the best.
The event this year, Djokovic, Raonic, Murray, Wawrinka, Nishikori on the men's side, Serena on the women's side, a lot made of the fact they're all not here. Ticket sale issues, corporate issues, buzz issues, is it impacting the tournament?
You know, I would say no, and I knock on wood for that. I mean, our ticket sales are still very healthy. You know, and I think it comes down to and not only ticket sales, but I think our opening night ratings were good. You know, certainly from the corporate point of view, no impact. You know, at the end of the day, somebody's got to win the tournament. So historically, as you know, we have featured our former champions in the way we market this event. Now we'll be featuring future champions because there's stories to be told. And this is the natural order of sports. I mean, you know this, Rick. Times change. Yeah. Young stars emerge, so we'll see who has it.
Young stars. So according to the numbers, we've got 9 U.S. men ranked in the top 100 and 14 U.S. women, many younger, obviously, many ready to take their place. You have a very unique financial commitment here. A lot of the budget for training the kids comes from the revenues generated by this event and the USTA. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, I mean, that is our mission, right? We need to grow and develop the sport of tennis. And now that's kind of morphed into an additional imperative for us to make tennis look like America. So we need to reinvest the revenues that we earn from the U.S. Open, which is healthy, into growing the game. And as part of that commitment, this year in the Lake Nona area of Orlando, we have built the USTA National Campus, which is, truly the first time we can deliver our mission from a state-of-the-art facility. All of this we're doing with our money. We do not ask for public funding. We don't want to build this on the back of our fans, by hiking ticket prices all over the board or things of that nature. So, you have this crown jewel of an event here located in New York every year. We've relocated our community tennis, our recreational tennis, and our player development into one facility under one umbrella there in Orlando. That cost us $60 million. It's a fantastic facility, but our goal is to bring all these things together in a much more holistic way than we have in the past to make the greatest impact, on the game.
As a managing director, and you're not going to micromanage this question anyway, you wouldn't, but the published reports say $291 million or so of revenue generated last year, for example. Break down generally where that money goes, generally.
That's, as we said, $50 million goes to the players. We invest back into the 17 sections that are putting, rackets and balls into communities around the country, about 120 million. We have debt service because, as I said, we are transforming the National Tennis Center here, right? The USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center, the home of the U.S. Open, has been completely revitalized, transformed. As you mentioned, roof over the Arthur Ashe Stadium, new grandstand built. We're at the midpoint of the new Louis Armstrong Stadium. We've completely redone the southern campus. It's bigger, it's better, it's bolder, but that costs some bucks. And so now we have to service that debt. So that is kind of like the three tranches that account for most of the money.
And of that debt service, one of the interesting things about facilities is you make some decisions that are directly related to revenue, and you make some that are related to fan comfort as well. How did the roof and the other $600 million or so 5-year plan balance that? Is most of it for revenue generation purposes? Is most of it for fan comfort purposes, or is it a mixture?
It's definitely a mixture. The roof is the prime example of that. That would probably be the best example I could use to answer that question. If you were looking at this as a pure return on investment, a pure economic decision, you would never build the roof. Why would you? You already have the tickets sold. You already have your corporate deals in place. You already have your broadcast deals. So the fact that you make it a rain out is irrelevant. Yeah. It is not impacting. You've now invested all this money, $150 million or so, in a technological marvel that nobody thought could get done, but technology's improved, people get smarter, and we now have a roof. But you did that because that's the right thing for your fans, it's the right thing for the players, and it is the right thing for your partners. So that's why we did it.
It's the right thing for majors, too. I mean, this is for a British audience as well, and Wimbledon's into it, French into it, Australia into it, and now it looks like it almost is a conditioned precedent for continuing to have a major for stability and other reasons to make sure you have a roof on your primary stadium.
There's no question about that, and in fact, you bring up Wimbledon in Australia, they have multi-roofs. The French are working towards that right now at Roland Garros, and therefore our number 2 stadium, which will be operational in 2018, will also have a retractable roof. So we will now have 2 roofs here at the NTC, or the National Tennis Center, forgive me.
Corporate activation, 24 major partners, but the big ones, the blue chip ones, JP Morgan and Chase and IBM and Mercedes-Benz and American Express, Emirates and others, it's the top of the crop. I assume they're excited or they wouldn't have continued to do it. Something special about the activation of a corporate partner here for the 2 weeks?
Well, I can tell you what my opinion is, right? And this is what I understand. First of all, the U.S. Open is unique in the sense that it's always in the same location. It's not the Super Bowl, which is in various markets, or the World Series, where you're unsure where it may be until the playoffs are done.
Unless you're a Mets fan, and you're not, you are sure.
And then
Never mind.
You have the same with hockey and the same with basketball. So that one location, though, happens to be the financial capital of the United States and one of the financial capitals of the world, obviously, in New York. It's also perfectly situated on the calendar. The end of summer as a transition to the beginning of fall, which everybody knows, in a sense, is like the new start of a business year. Yeah. So it is built for hospitality. It is a premium event. We do an unbelievable job here. I don't want to sound not humble, but it is true, and it attracts global business leaders. In those things come together, and the fact that we are continually pushing ourselves and pushing that envelope to make it a better place, I think just works for us, and we are able to attract the bluest of blue chips.
By the way, when you valued the Chase deal and the increment for the roof, was there some kind of analysis that talked about the LaGuardia landing pattern and how many people saw Chase flying into LaGuardia Airport?
Look, I think, it's not lost on Chase, the visibility, and it's not only LaGuardia, obviously, it's when it happens television-wise. The other thing that, a growing phenomenon for us from a business point of view and an economic point of view, one of our drivers, of course, is international television. It was interesting talking to the head of sponsorship for Emirates, and, when this is a few years back, and thinking about the U.S. Open, thinking about tennis, obviously they're very engaged, very active in sports around the world. And he was in New Zealand, and he turned on the television, and he saw a U.S. Open Series event. And he's like, I got to get involved. I'm here. Yeah, I got it.
If we're only that simple, but it's incremental.
Yeah,
obviously.
So now what you're seeing is because of the explosion of technology, the access that people have around the world that they didn't have before, beyond the television, through devices, etc. Our rights, and others similar to us, but our rights are becoming more and more valuable internationally. If you're somebody like Chase or anybody else, that's part of the picture.
Yeah, and it sounds like a sales pitch. Widmeyer doesn't sell. He just is very factual, straight down the middle, as you could see, one of the managing directors of this event. Economic impact. Everybody's eyes glaze over when you talk numbers. It's always the last paragraph of an article. Yet, 700,000 people, 40% come from out of town, out of region. The hotel rooms are significant, marked up even higher. So we understand the reasons for an $800 million economic impact, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And, so you're 100%. It might actually even be a little higher than 40% now, Rick. I think we're up to about 46, 47%.
Well, we got to redo the numbers. 46 or
47% from outside the New York metro area. So it's not dollars that my wife and I, we live here in this area. Are we going to go to a Yankee game? We're going to go to a Broadway show. We're going to go out to dinner. So we have discretionary income, but it's the same amount. Yeah. If I were to go to Chicago, if I were to go to London, if I were going to go wherever else, well, now I'm giving you my money. So, that's obvious, right? So of those 47%, I think 15% are now from overseas. Yeah. So they're international visitors. So that's totally, that's hotels, that's other cultural institutions, museums, restaurants, plays, etc. So this is the economic engine that is the U.S. Open is phenomenal, and it's great for the city of New York.
You've been doing this for how long?
This is my 14th U.S. Open.
And so give us a general sense from the gut of the health of the tennis industry, broadly defined.
Look, I think we're in good shape, but nobody can rest on their laurels. We always have to be pushing ourselves. When we think about this, right, I'll give you an example if you don't mind. So the week before the U.S. Open, as you know, is our qualifying tournament. So 128 men, 128 women try to scrap and claw and battle to get into the main draw. And it was called the U.S. Open qualifying. Well, what the heck does that mean? Yeah. So now we call it Fan Week. It's free. You can come to this tennis center and watch qualies for free. We added an experience, a fan fest for the first time. It's not like that hasn't been done before at the South Street Seaport. you can still get a ticket for $30. This is all about accessibility. That's what we need to do a better job on. Showing people that the sport is accessible, bringing them in, all communities, all ages. As I said earlier, our goal is to make tennis look like America. And I think we're making strides.
And the future of this event and the future of tennis in America relative to the kids, there's a published book that's circulating in the press room, a pamphlet about Team USA and the resources and how to create the next batch of players. What does it take, and are Americans and American tennis, is it on its way to bringing the next superstars up the way they need to be?
Well, we're certainly hopeful of that. The USTA has kind of evolved its strategy and its philosophy over times, and what we want to do is show the private coaches, the private industry, and the players that are coming up that this isn't about the USTA. This is about tennis in America. We want the champions, obviously. I'm stating the obvious, but we do.
Yeah.
We haven't had a Grand Slam champion since 2003. America likes winners. We want to breed winners, and this whole Team USA approach is what we're doing to do that.
So we do this day 2 of a 2-week event here, this interview. Extended forecast look good? You okay?
Actually, it looks fantastic.
Your hair's a little gray. You okay today?
We got a little rain today, but you know what? We have a roof.
Yeah. Well put, ladies and gentlemen. So the bottom line is the tennis industry, Chris Widmeyer, one of the managing directors of the event, you've got a $6 billion tennis industry in the U.S., much more than that globally, 300,000 tennis courts here, much more than that globally. And the way American tennis goes, so goes in many ways international tennis and the U.S. Open, incredibly important for the future of tennis generally in the entire sport as well. Rick Horrow, see you next time. Well, thanks Chris Widmeyer, and thanks everybody else for being involved in the show. Thanks to Dan Martin for helping us put it together with Tanner Simpkins and Ronnie Silkash from my staff. Thanks for you all listening. It's a significant week with the NFL starting, as we see. College football, baseball heating up in their pennant races, basketball and hockey just around the corner, and the FedEx Cup coming to a close, NASCAR almost as well. Certainly a busy month in sports. And join us next week when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.